The trial chamber stretched endlessly upward, its crystalline walls pulsing with bioluminescent veins that cast dancing shadows across the assembled crowd. Jackson stood in the defendant's circle, his hands bound with energy shackles that hummed against his wrists. Around him, hundreds of Zephyrian nobles watched with their large, opalescent eyes, some filled with curiosity, others with barely concealed hostility. At the chamber's apex sat Queen Veltara, her magnificent form draped in flowing robes that seemed to be woven from starlight itself. Her 4 arms moved gracefully as she reviewed the charges, each gesture accompanied by the soft chiming of the ceremonial rings that marked her royal status. When she finally spoke, her voice resonated through the chamber like distant thunder. "Jackson Hayes of Earth," she began, her words translated by the neural implant behind his ear. "You stand accused of interfering with the sacred hunt of ascension, thereby denying a royal heir their rightful passage to adulthood. How do you answer?" Jackson lifted his chin, meeting the Queen's gaze without flinching. "I'd do it again." A ripple of shock passed through the assembled nobles. Several gasped, their gill slits fluttering in distress. The Queen's secondary eyes narrowed, a sign of deep displeasure that Jackson had learned to recognize during his 3 years stationed on Zephyria Prime. "You would condemn Prince Kethmore to eternal childhood, to never knowing the strength that comes from surviving the hunt?" The Queen's voice carried a dangerous edge. "Your Majesty," Jackson said, his voice steady despite the gravity of his situation, "with respect, your son is 7 years old. Where I come from, we don't send children to fight apex predators alone." The memory was still fresh in his mind. Little Prince Kethmore, barely reaching Jackson's waist, stumbling through the crimson forest of the hunt grounds while shadow raptors stalked him from the canopy above. The child had been crying, his small hands bleeding from the thorns, completely overwhelmed by the terror of his sacred trial. Jackson had been there as part of the human diplomatic security detail, ordered to observe but never interfere with Zephyrian customs. But when he saw the shadow raptor descending toward the prince, its razor-sharp talons extended, something deep in his human DNA had overridden his orders. He'd moved without thinking, tackling the creature mid-leap and wrestling it away from the terrified child. The beast's claws had raked across his chest, leaving scars that still ached, but Kethmore had lived. "The hunt is sacred," Queen Veltara continued, rising from her throne. "For 10,000 years, every member of the royal bloodline has faced the shadow raptors alone. Those who survive become leaders. Those who do not—" She paused, her primary eyes never leaving Jackson's face. "Were never meant to rule." "Maybe," Jackson replied, "but humans have a different way of looking at things." A new voice cut through the tension. "Let me speak for him." All eyes turned toward the chamber's entrance where Lily Chen, Jackson's partner and fellow diplomat, strode forward. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and her diplomatic uniform was pristine despite the urgent journey she'd clearly made to reach the trial in time. Queen Veltara's 4 arms crossed in a gesture of reluctant tolerance. "The human female may speak, but she cannot change what her companion has done." Lily bowed respectfully before addressing the court. "Your Majesty, honored nobles, I ask you to consider what humanity offers that your traditions cannot." She gestured toward Jackson, who stood a little straighter at her arrival. 3 years ago, when the Void Plague threatened to consume your outer colonies, who worked alongside your scientists to find a cure? When the asteroid miners of Kepler 442 went on strike, who mediated the negotiations that saved both your economy and their lives? Humans, Queen Veltara acknowledged reluctantly. "And why were we able to help where others could not?" The Queen's gill slits fluttered, a sign of thoughtful consideration. "Your species thinks differently." "Exactly," Lily said, moving closer to the defendant's circle. "We don't see strength only in individual survival. We see it in protection, in cooperation, in choosing to shield the vulnerable even at cost to ourselves." She looked up at the Queen with unwavering conviction. "Jackson didn't just save your son's life. He demonstrated the very quality that makes humans valuable allies, our instinctive need to protect those who cannot protect themselves." Prince Kethmore himself appeared at the chamber's side entrance, his small form flanked by his tutors. The young Zephyrian broke free from his handlers and ran toward Jackson, his webbed feet pattering against the crystalline floor. "Jackson!" the prince called out in accented English, the language he'd been practicing. "You came back." The sight of the child, alive, healthy, and clearly fond of his protector, sent another wave of murmurs through the crowd. Queen Veltara's expression softened slightly as she watched her son embrace the human's legs. "Your Majesty," Jackson said quietly, "I know I violated your customs. I know the hunt is sacred to your people. But when I saw that raptor diving toward Kethmore, I didn't see a prince undergoing a trial. I saw a scared little boy who needed help." He placed his bound hands gently on the child's head. "I saw my friend." The queen was silent for a long moment, her forearms moving in complex patterns as she weighed her decision. Finally, she spoke. "Jackson Hayes of Earth, you have indeed violated our most sacred tradition. By rights, you should face the same trial you denied my son, alone in the hunt grounds with only your courage to protect you." Jackson nodded, accepting his fate. "However," the queen continued, and Jackson's head snapped up in surprise, "my son lives because of your actions. More importantly, he has learned something from you that the hunt could never teach, that true strength sometimes means protecting others rather than proving oneself." She gestured, and Jackson's energy shackles dissolved. "You will not face the hunt, Jackson Hayes. Instead, you will remain on Zephyria Prime as Prince Kethmore's personal guardian and cultural advisor. If human instincts are truly as valuable as your companion suggests, then perhaps it is time our future king learned to think like a human when necessary." Jackson felt his knees nearly buckle with relief. "Your Majesty, Do not thank me yet," Queen Veltara interrupted with what might have been amusement. "Raising a royal heir is far more dangerous than facing shadow raptors. You may yet wish I had simply fed you to the hunt grounds." As laughter rippled through the chamber and Prince Kethmore hugged Jackson tighter, Lily caught her partner's eye and smiled. Once again, humanity's greatest strength, their stubborn refusal to abandon those in need, had won the day. The trial was over. The real adventure was just beginning.